I'm Minnie Mills, and I'm here with the Asian American Girl Club to talk about what makes me undefinable. We grew up in a lot of white communities, and I didn't really grow up in one place where I could call like one city home and really relate to like the culture and like the country even. My mom made it really important to have like my Korean culture was kind of what grounded me and kind of what I was able to call like home, or you know really like was kind of at the center of who I was. And I grew up speaking Korean. She was very wanted to make sure we like read and wrote Korean as well. um, and it was very hard for her because we grew up in places where she was the only Korean person for miles and miles, and there were no other Korean people. I mean, no Korean markets, no Korean food, so she had to make her own kimchi, and she always was kept that like the stories and the lullabies and the food at the center of our home, and I'm very appreciative for that. I mean, I've been able to live in all these places and see all these different types of cultures and people and experiences, and I think that's part of a huge part of who I am, and has made me a much more open-minded and accepting and empathetic person. Representation. Oh, representation. It's so important. And I remember growing up, there was so little representation of people who looked like me. And it gets so interesting, when I was a kid, a lot of people didn't even know what Korea was. And I remember kids would ask me, like, I'd be like, I'm Korean, and they'd be like, oh, is that Japanese for Japan? And I was like, no, it's a country. I feel like there's so often a singular way to see Asian. You see, and you're like, any representation you should be grateful for. You have to just take what you can get. And I feel like that's kind of what we've been like trained to like be like, just like be grateful for any representation, however it comes. And there's so often a narrative of like, the unnoticed girl, the shy girl, the girl who doesn't know her worth, the girl who's like unremarkable, invisible. And that narrative surrounds Asian characters so frequently. And, and if there is an Asian character, there's so often just one. And there's one way to be Asian, there's one Asian character, and that's one way you can see yourself. But what I loved about playing Shayla is you get to see like an Asian face that is also like the it girl and beautiful, and she doesn't have to question herself, and someone who's confident and not compromising herself in any way for anyone, even Steven, like she is who she is. And if you can accept that, that's great. And if not, well, I'm sorry, When I first got this role, I think like people in my life were like, Minnie, can you pull that off? like that character and Minnie, like they couldn't coincide, like hold those two in their mind. I originally auditioned for Belly, and I got a screen test for Belly, and that didn't end up working out. And honestly, I was just so grateful to have any kind of like feedback for my acting, because I'd never acted in front of people before, really, unless you count my middle school play career. The producers and the writers and everyone was so collaborative. And when I originally auditioned, I auditioned with my American accent because I auditioned for Belly with an American accent, and I kept going with Shayla. And I got to set, and they were like, speak your natural accent. They were so willing to let me bring elements of myself into this character. I think in the YA genre, I don't know if I can name another Asian couple, and seeing, two Asian people being together on screen, because I think so often, there's this narrative that like to prove your worth, you have to be like seen by a white person. Yes. And like seen as desirable by a white person, accepted by them. And I think to see an Asian couple on screen that is strong, and they're kind of like a stable couple, they go through their ups and downs, but they're strong and they're supportive and they're communicative and they talk to each other and they're like supportive and understanding of each other. And I really loved seeing that and being able to be a part of that and, you know, create that with Sean. And I really hope to see more of it in the media. And I hope that Shayla's story finds a way to continue, because I really love what she represents. My best friends and I spend like every waking moment talking to them, but now I'm blanking. Okay, we can go. Gavin is Little Mr. Country Boy. Oh, Summer, Little Miss Puzzle Master. Chris is Mr. Dad. Sean, I have so many for Sean. I'm trying to come up with one that's not mean. Mr. Sunshine. He's just, yeah, he's just a ray of sunshine. Lola, my dear Lola. She would be Little Miss responsible, but in like the best way, because I think all of us are a little bit of a mess, and Lola manages to be like a fun and amazing person to be around, but she carries, you know, the weight of this, leading this show and everything so well. And we're all a little bit all over the place, and Lola gathers us, brings us back to ground. She grounds us. I think I've spent so much of my life in kind of like this in-between area, not feeling like I can fully claim any label, but at the same time being put into all these different boxes. And then when I get into the box, it's like you don't really belong. Somebody's going to tell me I'm not really Korean, or I'm not Korean enough, and somebody's going to tell me my accent is kind of like a muddled version of all the places I've been. And, you know, we are all something entirely unique, and and boxes and labels can be very comforting, and, you know, and it helps you find your community, but also like, I am whoever I want to be. I can take up as much space as I want and be in whatever space as I want. And I'm fluid. I'm trying to find who I am, and I'm trying to make that my own definition for myself, instead of letting people define me. I am who I am, and I don't need anyone to approve that or stamp it or define me. And I think that's what being undefinable means to me, is having the power to define myself.